Hello, welcome back to another episode of D54. I'm Amit, joined by Melanie from Paradise Reviews, joined by Kathy from Cinemondo. Welcome back, guys. How you going?
Hi. We're doing well. Glad to have a crazy sci-fi Malayalam film to talk about.
I love that.
Definitely. We are talking about Gaganachari, a real, different movie that came out earlier this year in June. Honestly, I think I'd heard about this movie even before then. Like, they put out some kind of sneaker, trailer for it, so long ago. Then they pushed it. Then the trailer came out around June time, so I'd kind of forgotten about it. But then it came back. It never reached cinema here, but I was interested to see what this movie was about. It had gotten good to mixed reviews, so we finally had the chance to check it out on streaming. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This movie for me, it wasn't the best movie I've ever seen. I would say not the worst movie. I'm gonna be completely honest. This is not one that blew me away. I appreciate a lot about this movie, but yeah, there are parts of this movie that I definitely have some criticisms about. But before I go too deep into it, what do you think about it, Kathy?
I appreciated the sort of ambitious attempt to do this really huge world building post-apocalyptic sci-fi world, which I hadn't seen a lot of in Indian film. So I liked that, and I thought a lot of it looked really good. I mean, it looked kind of it's kind of video game CGI-ish, but I thought it was really cool. I thought it started off really well. I was a little disappointed when they kind of went down the sort of cheeseball comedy route, because I feel like they had a really strong idea. And then I felt when they got inside of where we were going to spend the rest of the movie, it started out kind of epic, with the big landscapes. And then I feel like we got confined to this kind of badly lit, ugly set that I didn't think did it any favors. And so that was kind of a drag. But overall, I liked some of the tech ideas, how people were coping. I just felt like it was a missed opportunity for, I think, a more interesting, bigger scope, if that makes sense.
Right. I agree with that. Yeah. I was blown away with kind of the beginning of the film, like you say, the world building. Yeah. The CGI was pretty decent. We're setting up what all has happened to bring us to this point where this guy is living in a bunker with a couple of other people, that they're rationed on certain things, that the cops are still kind of scamming them. It's like certain things have stayed the same. There were certain things that were really funny, but some of the stuff I was wondering if it was so culturally specific to people in Kerala that they may have been laughing uproariously, and it was just over my head why particular scenes should be funny. And I totally agree with you. We set up and we have all of this kind of, setting up why we're in the situation that we're in, showing about aliens, showing all these incredible shots of spaceships in the sky, whatever. Then the lion's share of the movie is, like you said, inside this one bunker house. And the relationship of these three people that are kind of trapped together, and then another person shows up, and how that changes the dynamic for them all. But I'm like, oh man, you set up this great premise and you got me all excited, and now I'm stuck in this bunker with these three guys, and were things like Aju Varghese's character, I think, was the most amusing to me. His name was Vibe. And so
I like the way he said it too. Vibe. My name is Vibe. Like the way he introduced himself.
Okay, the fact that he was like an influencer in the past, and then evidently the government just eliminated the internet, so then he didn't know what to do with himself. And tried to kind of still live on the embers of his fame when he would go to the local bar or whatever. That I did find amusing, and the way he played that character. But I don't know. I just I also felt like it was a missed opportunity. Like, okay, I'm in the middle of this movie and I'm kind of losing interest with the dynamic of these three guys. I was like, strong beginning, pretty strong ending, middle, like chaotic. And I'm like, okay, maybe you guys had a super limited budget, because I looked up this director, Arun Chandu. And I think, maybe they had extremely limited budget. They spent it on maybe doing some of the CGI to set up this world. And I'm still like, okay, you could have had scenes like with overgrown jungle. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could have been outside this building.
At some point.
I completely agree. Like, it felt like we started off so broad, and they sort of introduced us to all these themes. Like, okay, wow, post-apocalyptic world. You can do so much with just that. You can do so much with sort of what's happened in the past, how are people coping. But then we just narrow in so much into just one little bunker, and then it's sort of all that stuff from the outside kind of disappears, and we just focusing on this relationship, like this relationship between these three characters and fourth character that comes along as well. And yeah, it is what you sort of said, Kathy, as well. Along the, I didn't really. Maybe it is the comedy that just didn't work for me, but maybe there are cultural references. But I've seen other Malayalam comedies and they have worked for me, so it's not like it's a genre that doesn't work for me. Maybe this one was just referring exclusively to pop culture references or something like that, or specific things in the Malayali like community. Maybe something like that. But in terms of just, I was excited when I saw this movie and I saw 2 hours. I was like, okay, wow, this is going to go by like a breeze.
Yeah.
It was a long 2 hours. I felt like I was stuck in that chamber with those three characters the whole time as well. Like, oh my God, we're not getting out. We're not moving. I felt the characters were too one-dimensional in a way. Like, they really didn't offer us much more than what we saw. Like, Vibe was great. He was funny. But then after that, there was nothing else. It was like, okay, that's all I am for 2 hours. And I was like, okay, cool. A few different side plots that come in and out. The structure was kind of funny as well to get like the focus right. Like, they have a plot with the police, and that's a threat. We have this ongoing romance and this Vibe guy trying to take the relationship, and then the other guy trying to take the girl as well. All these sort of concepts played, but none of them were really that like interesting to me. I was kind of like, okay, whatever. Like, by the time it got to like 45 minutes, I was just like, I'm basically over this. This something has to sort of change. And there's a bit of light when like the female character comes in, who surprisingly doesn't say a word. Like, she's just sort of there for like so long, just sort of giving expressions. And I'm like, all right, I'd like this character to be more interesting as well, because you have an alien come in. Why are you making this such a boring alien? Like,
I know.
Make the character bring life to this movie, but instead she's the one that sort of just goes down.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Like, is there, what else?
Another thing I didn't like.
No, I didn't like that at all.
Okay, let's contrast with Ramachan. Okay, so there you have a low budget film, basically filmed in one place, in one house. Yeah. But yet, I was gripped every moment. Oh my God, I loved every moment of that. Yeah. And the humor landed, even if it was not my culture and I was an outsider.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, again, contrast those two. Much better script in Ramachan. I suppose there was world building or whatever for the horror there, but I mean, so we're talking two different low budget films. One that worked fantastically well, and this one, okay, you had a low budget, but you could still have done more. Okay, you said, you could have given us depth of characters or made something. Okay, you have a sketch of what this character is, but then you're going to have to give us a little bit more to get us through even 2 hours of why am I going to care if Alan gets the girl? Why am I going to care?
Who am I rooting for in this movie? Wasn't really sure what the point was in a way. And what you said, sketch, the whole movie felt like sketch. It felt underwritten. It felt like there was a cool idea, but they didn't quite know where to go with it. And so everything was just kind of, here we are just in this bunker, and let's throw a woman in. And then it was an alien and a woman, which was kind of a funny idea because men think women are aliens. So that's funny.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like, it felt sort of, she was just there for the men. Like, I never felt like she was there for any other reason except to sort of create some havoc with the men. Like, I felt it was that sort of like, let's throw in a female character and she's an alien. And it could have been interesting if they'd really either pushed the alien or actually made her a character or a more superior character or something. But they didn't really push it. Like, I kept thinking,
it's just funny she's eating cat food.
This is comedy. That's really odd. Which is weird, because then like every now and then they'll jump into the exposition world where they have like, okay, now I'm going to tell you about the fact that I'm 250 years old and I walked through these different planets. And we see that sort of, that small little exposition dump where they're sort of showing the different images and her working through the different worlds. I'm like, wow, okay, so there's a lot to this character, but you're not showing us any of it. You're just telling us over and over again about how, big and broad she is and how she's old and she's been to places and there's a voice piece. Okay. But okay, now we're back to comedy. Like, just, make the lights go flash and then make her eat cat food. I'm like, okay, there is depth here. You have some idea, but you're not focusing to show that. You're focusing to just on the gags over and over again. It did feel like a sketch. You are right. And for me, I don't know, the mockumentary style, like, I personally was a bit skeptical of this movie to going in because I don't really like this style too much where they're talking to the camera. It works for some TV shows. Some TV shows do it.
I kind of liked that because it gave us.
I didn't mind that. I mean,
I liked it.
You have to realize
The Office. Yeah.
Oh well, we grew up on This Is Spinal Tap. Like, come on.
Yeah.
You know?
No. As I said, I'm not completely opposed to it, and I have seen it. But for some reason, this one, it might be just because the flow of the story was already like not. It wasn't a fast-paced movie or anything like that, so it just sort of slowed things down when we're in those scenes.
That's true.
They weren't sort of used like as like a moment to be like, okay, like something big happened. Let's now see what the reaction is from the inside, which is what like shows like The Office and Parks and Rec do really well. Like they'll be like, oh wow, okay, what do these people actually think? But this movie was like nothing big happens, and whereas then we're having an interview with someone, I'm like, you don't need to tell me, I just saw what happened. Like it's not really or to get an insight into your life, which isn't really that interesting. Like they were talking about. I did also like this guy, Ganesh. Kumar, the major who was like the ex-hunter. I like the way, like I like the characters. They all had something to them, but just not enough depth. Like there just wasn't enough for me to
okay, so you set up that this older guy has all of these perks because he was an alien hunter, and yet an alien comes into his home and he hardly reacts. Like, hey, can I paint you? Like, what? Like there could have been conflict there, and yet there was nothing. It was just three guys fighting over the same purple-haired girl.
Yeah,
correct.
It was such a base approach to that concept. Like, let's have them fighting; it'll be really funny. It's like, no, it's not really that funny. And but I think actually the best character was the what would it be called? Like the Alexa type character, which I thought was funny. Like changing like the respect filter. Like, let me turn you up to 75. Or I thought that was
what's my honesty filter? Is at 80%.
And I'm like, why don't we have that?
I love that it was like the old timey phonograph speaker. That was cute. That was really cute.
So they had some stuff in there, but like I said, it was so padded out into 2 hours. It felt like thin. It felt underwritten. It felt like sort of like one of those. It was a first round script or something, and they didn't dial it in really. So they had some great stuff at the beginning, some kind of cool stuff at the end, but in the middle, it felt like they were kind of lost. Didn't quite know what to do.
Right. I mean, I contrast with something like District 9, okay, that really dealt with what happens, like one of my favorite films, right? Like aliens come, what happens, what is the world like after that, what happens to this one character, and we really get into it. Like, there was nothing like that. Right? That's kind of what, when we started and we had all these, oh, wow, these spaceships have landed.
I expected that too.
So good.
You know what I mean? I was like, okay, this is going to be maybe like a thriller. Somebody's going to be on the run. I don't know. Nothing.
At least points of tension. Like there was at least something like that. Like points where they'd be like, okay, fine. This is actually, are they going to be worried for their lives because there's this new threat that's coming? Yeah. Nothing like that. Like it's kind of strange because it didn't really. They labeled this as a sci-fi movie, but I didn't really get those, like, except for the exhibition piece, those exposition pieces. It didn't really feel like a sci-fi movie. Like it was just
it just means that it was set in the future. It was set in 2050, where it was a big deal that he drove away in his fossil fuel car at the end because that wasn't allowed. Okay.
Yeah. There's like political statement now. What are you saying?
Okay.
There's like some notes of sci-fi, but it doesn't really, and I can't excuse like. It's not. I appreciate the fact that this is maybe a new industry. It's not like I see a sci-fi movie every week from the Malayalam film industry.
Be mean about it, but I do want to see more of these films from them for sure. But
I definitely like to see them.
Yeah, I when I was trying before all of us had seen it, and Kathy was like, "Well, what did you think?" And I was trying not to give too much away, and I said, "Listen, I appreciated the chutzpah of trying to do a sci-fi film." Yeah. Okay, so I do want to say I admire that. I admire that they were trying to do something fresh, that they were trying to do something different that's not the same old. Yeah. Maybe some of it devolved into that, but at least the setup and the world building was something that I had not seen before in Malayalam cinema. Yeah. So I have to give props to that. But it just didn't. The execution just didn't completely work because of all the reasons that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're basically all in the same boat, like all the same boat about this one. Like the other sci-fi movie that really did work for me, at least, and I think was a much better movie from the Malayalam Malayalam film industry was Truly. Like that was a movie that was basically that one where they're sort of in the forest because it didn't have all the visuals that this movie had. Like this movie created like a landscape. Well, images of a landscape and some video. Like they weren't living in that landscape. They were living in a very normal world. Yeah. But that one was like more like there was a theme of like, there's something overarching, something dangerous that's in this world and we don't understand it. That's what sort of sci-fi is really more about, like the unknown, and sort of something that we can't even imagine can like attack us or something like that. But this movie didn't have any of that. It was, again, more of a comedy, but again, I wish it wasn't in some ways. Like I wish I didn't mind some of the comedy beats, but I wish there was like, it's considering the situation they're in. I thought they would take it a little bit more seriously, but they made it into comedy.
Right.
So,
I mean, they just created this action sequence at the end where the alien finally floats in the air and does some stuff. Okay.
Floats in the air.
Seriously.
I think part of it is you didn't really care about the characters that much because they weren't that deep. You didn't feel stakes. I didn't feel like there was a lot of stake for any of these characters because I didn't care if they lived or died, honestly. I mean, you were kind of like, so what? So I think that's the difference too with the movie you just mentioned, is that you cared about those characters. There was a reason. Yeah. There felt like they were ramping towards something that felt like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But we didn't quite get that here. The only thing I liked the giant cat, though I don't quite understand what that was about. I don't really understand what that was.
Okay, but I mean,
aliens? I don't, or cats aliens?
I don't know. Spoilers, like the fact that the alien was getting messages from Alan, who was still trying to revive this non-existent relationship.
Yeah.
And the way that she was just sitting there like, yeah, whatever, with the giant cat is kind of the way the rest of us felt.
Yeah, you're like, I would like to see more of that. Like, why weren't we in that world? Like, I feel like they bookended it with the best things and never really explained them. And then we were stuck in the middle of these three people we didn't care about. That was sort of where we ended up. But, again, I feel like there was the bones of something good. They didn't quite know what to do with it. And I think special effects, you can kind of move away from it a little bit budget-wise by making the sets a little interesting and the characters interesting. You don't have to have a lot of money to write good characters and make them compelling. Because there's been a lot of sci-fi movies that basically take place on one spaceship, and the spaceship's not that interesting. Yep. But you have characters, there's some dynamic, So I think that was a good try, and hopefully they learned from that to go, the most important thing aren't visuals. They aren't the concept. It is the characters. So just a little more time on those. I think it would have been good.
I mean, that's where Malayalam cinema normally thrives in the script.
I know.
Like if anything, it'd be a letdown in some other way. But I mean, this movie was kind of on the other end. Like, we have a good idea, and then we're just gonna forget writing the whole 95% of it and just leave it. So
we'll just have some bros in here, and they'll be trying to get girls, and then they'll try.
I mean, you almost wonder if they said this is your character, and then they sort of improv'd. I would be curious.
I would be
curious if they did. Right?
Maybe it was
that's definitely been the thing with mockumentaries, right? Like I mentioned, this is Spinal Tap. Like I think a lot of that was just riffing on this is what your character is, and then they just kind of riff. And that's sort of like how I felt, like the Alan character with his obsession with old movies and all of that. Like I later learned that he is the son of Suresh Gopi. So I'm sure there's some inside jokes there. But I don't know. I just sort of felt like they just let these characters talk to kind of, and improv and whatever. And it's like, okay, there was maybe a little bit too much of that, right?
That's true. And things like Spinal Tap, you have incredibly seasoned, great comedians who know how to improv and have done it their whole lives. And this felt like you had actors who were being asked to improv that weren't really necessarily that good at it, but were trying to sort of see what would happen. But you need a script. That's why actors exist.
Yep, definitely.
We need a script.
Unfortunately, it didn't work for us. I think we all applaud, the attempt and hoping to see more.
Yeah.
And
I think there's bones.
I'm glad I saw it.
A waste. I mean, it was underwritten, but it was fun to watch. I mean, it had some interesting things. It was just like you said, it felt long. And then it
did feel long, which was the hardest part.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm like 2 hours. Okay, then I think I felt like I'd been watching it forever. I took the time. It was like half an hour, and I was like, oh my god, there's still an hour and a half left of stuck in this bunker with these guys. Like, oh my goodness, you could almost see
what you said. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, you could almost tell that like there's not going to, you get the sense of this movie, like the tone I got was like things are not going to change. This movie is just going to be about us exploring these three. There's not going to be a big moment or anything changing. It's just going to be the same sort of, the pacing was just going to stay the same, just completely flatline, just like that until the end where it picks up a little bit. And then after that, we're like, that's like what, 5 minutes, and then it's like, yeah, she's an island with a cat. Okay,
but I feel like I see movies where I feel like they started the movie too early, and then you have too much time to get to the good part. Like if they had taken what you talk about, she starts floating and doing alien things. That should have been halfway through, because having to wait through all of that movie to see that. We knew it was coming. We knew what she was. There was no surprise. There was no reveal. It was just kind of like, what? Okay, so the last 5 minutes, like I feel like the movie should have backed it all down the line a little bit, so we got to see more of that. Her other planet, them trying to communicate with her while she left, and can they get her back or whatever the storyline could be. But they just spent too much time, like you said, in the setup. I feel like it didn't go anywhere. Like, why? Correct. Again, there's some good tech. Not great lighting, not a great set, but has some good CGI special effects at the beginning and the end. Decent. Yeah. I still didn't understand the cat thing, but I liked it.
Yeah, definitely.
Still didn't quite understand that.
Well, let us know what you guys thought in the comments. Let us know how wrong we are. Let us know how much we didn't understand this movie, and how this went over our heads, and it's actually a masterpiece, and we just didn't get it. Like,
I continue to love Varghese. I think he's like the MVP of so many different films where he has a supporting role, or he comes in and does a cameo or something, and he just hits it out of the park every time. So I especially enjoyed him. I don't have anything against the actress. I don't know that I know her name, but they really didn't give her anything to work with. Okay, we see her and she's got cat fur all around her mouth. Okay. And as you said, she was left like half the time that she was on screen, she wasn't talking, until they fixed the whatever thing that translated her speech, or whatever.
Very strange.
It's a strange choice, because you have like all the characters were not that interesting until she comes along, and you have the chance to make a really interesting character, but you chose to make her even less interesting than those three. So it's like, okay.
Well, because they made it about the men reacting to her. They didn't. She was like just a catalyst. They didn't give her anything else to do except create a situation for the men.
Catalyst, get you that?
Catalyst.
Such a good pun. Thank you.
That's funny.
Thank you for pointing that out. What kind of category would we put this movie in? That was a forced one, but we're trying. Cat pun. Yes. Of course, it's about the cats for me.
Thanks for joining me, guys. I appreciate it. Like, it's good to get through this movie with you guys.
Get it out of our system.
I think if I watched this by myself and did a review by myself, I would have been like, I probably would have done it.
I know, it's fun to talk about
because there's not that much. Yeah, exactly. If I'm just talking about by myself, it would be like, okay,
you're like, what am I gonna say about this? Yeah, but it's fun.
It's hard for me when the problem is when something is just kind of meh. That's really hard for me to talk just by myself in a review, because I don't really want to be mean, but yet, I come down to, is it worth someone spending money to see it in the theater if I just saw it in the theater? Correct. And some ones I just say it might be better to wait for streaming, right? And then people who watch my channel enough know, oh my God, she hated it.
Oh no, you should wait for streaming. That's
a secret code. That's a secret code. I mean, in this one, none of us paid for a movie ticket to watch it in the theater. We just watched it on streaming. So it was something that was interesting. My husband walked through the room and was like, what bizarre thing are you watching? You watch the strangest things.
I know. It's so funny. And I also feel like when we talk about it with each other, we sometimes find things we missed or
exactly.
appreciate that now I appreciate more or so I like being able to bounce things off people, and then you kind of go, oh yeah, that's true. That was pretty cool. So you never know until you hear other people's opinions. That's what makes movies so great.
Yep. That's right. Exactly. Thanks again, guys. And make sure to subscribe to Paradise Reviews on Melanie channel. Make sure to subscribe to Cinemondo with Kathy, and we will see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.